Okay, let's think about musical boundaries. What happens when they really just dissolve, when genres don't just blend, but kind of melt together into something?
Well, something completely new.
Yeah.
Today, we're doing a deep dive into exactly that. It's about a really groundbreaking project called 4x Fusion, and it's from an organization named TATANKA. So our mission here is to unpack the pretty ambitious vision behind 4x Fusion and everything connected to it. We want to explore how it's trying to redefine music,
Yeah.
but also culture and maybe even human connection itself. We're drawing this from some really detailed briefings we got, and also this very moving narrative piece.
Right. And 4 by Fusion, just to give you the high-level view, is this huge album, nearly 10 hours long, 238 tracks. And the core of it, the anchor, is a classical string quartet.
2 violins, viola, cello,
Yeah.
the standard setup.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But here's the twist. This quartet fuses with just incredibly diverse genres. We're talking jazz, lo-fi, techno, ambient, even traditional Persian music.
Wow. Yeah, it really forces you to kind of rethink musical categories altogether. It challenges how we even label things.
Okay, so let's unpack that. A classical string quartet. I mean, that's so tied to European classical tradition, right? How does it become this shapeshifter?
That's the fascinating part. It is traditionally associated with that, but here they completely recontextualize it. So you might hear it droning meditatively, like in ambient music, or syncopating with complex jazz chromaticism,
Uh-huh.
or even humming with those, warm, slightly fuzzy lo-fi textures. It's like they found a way for the quartet to naturally speak these other musical languages.
So it's not just layering sounds over the quartet, because that can sometimes sound, well, a bit gimmicky.
No, not at all, and that's crucial. The genius here is that the genres aren't just sprinkled on top. They are, as the material says, deeply embedded in the harmonic and rhythmic DNA of the composition.
Okay, deeply embedded. Can you give us a specific example? How does that work with something like, say, techno?
Okay, techno. So in the techno variations, you'll hear these repetitive motifs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rhythmic ostinatos, these persistent patterns that absolutely recall the pulse of a club track.
Right, that driving beat.
Exactly. But here's the thing. The instrumentation is all acoustic strings. 2 violins, viola, cello. No synths, no drum machines.
Wow.
So it creates this amazing hybrid energy. It feels organic and synthetic at the same time. It's really quite something.
And what about something like post-rock? That often relies on, big guitars, effects pedals.
Right, those swelling dynamics, the big emotional climaxes. Well, 4x Fusion achieves that kind of feeling, that build and release, purely through string articulation.
Just the way they play the
It's
instruments.
just the way they play. Bow pressure, vibrato, harmonics, dynamic shifts. It's all meticulously orchestrated to create that same emotional weight, but entirely within the acoustic realm.
That implies such a subtle approach. You mentioned the transitions feel inevitable.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. It doesn't feel like they're jumping abruptly between styles. It flows. It feels like the quartet was somehow always meant to explore these different territories. It definitely avoids feeling like a gimmick.
So when you have this level of artistry, the seamlessness, what's the wider impact? Does it actually change how people see the string quartet or who listens to it?
I think it really does. The sources argue that this project helps to democratize classical performance by engaging so authentically with contemporary genres people already know and love.
Like techno, lo-fi.
Exactly. It starts to appeal to younger audiences, more diverse audiences, people who might not normally think, oh, I'll listen to a string quartet today. So it's revitalizing the form, redefining it for the 21st century.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, you also mentioned Persian and Middle Eastern influences. This feels like a really significant thread. How are those elements woven in? Is it just a flavor?
No, definitely not just flavoring.
Right.
The briefings are quite clear. These influences are central to the compositions. It's about creating a genuine dialogue between, say, Iranian classical music traditions
Yeah.
and the Western chamber music format.
How do they do that musically?
Well, they incorporate traditional concepts like dasgas, which are complex melodic systems in Persian music, sort of like modes, but much richer. And they use microtonal intonations.
Ah, the notes between the notes.
Precisely. Those subtle pitches that are so characteristic of Middle Eastern music
Yeah.
and give it such expressive depth. So it's not just quoting a melody, it's working within that musical logic. The sources frame it as fusion for preservation and elevation.
Preservation and elevation, I like that.
And there's another layer here too, a really important one. There's a political and social resonance.
How so?
The inclusion of these Persian elements is tied to themes like azadi, which means freedom, and zan, meaning woman. These words carry immense weight, especially in the context of Iran and the struggles there. So the music becomes this kind of Sonic tribute. It honors the heritage, yes, but it also subtly nods to those fighting for human rights, for personal liberty, for cultural pride, particularly under oppressive regimes. It gives the music a real sense of purpose beyond just the notes.
That's incredibly powerful. And it sounds like they're really aiming for what the sources call ethical global fusion, collaborating with tradition, respecting it while still innovating, not just borrowing superficially.
Exactly. It's about deep respect and genuine dialogue.
Okay, so we've talked about the sound, the cultural depth, but 4 by Fusion isn't just sound, is it? What about the visual side? You mentioned a multimedia framework.
Yeah, the visual side is crucial. It's presented as an integral part of the storytelling. It's not just decoration, things like the cover art concepts, ideas for visualizers, even animated interpretations. They're all meant to deepen the experience.
Can you give an example?
Sure. There's one concept called the Quartet Alchemist. It apparently depicts the 4 instruments, glowing, being fused into this swirl of light by some kind of mystical figure. It's meant to capture that spiritual, transformative feeling of the music.
I can picture that.
Another one is Continental Drift of Sound. It uses maps, geography, to visually show how this genre fusion is crossing borders, connecting different parts of the world.
Clever.
And there's also 4 women playing in different worlds.
Yeah.
This one apparently speaks more directly to the feminist undertones of the project, affirming the power and agency of women through these distinct visual settings.
So they're really thinking about the whole package. And how does this translate to how people actually encounter the project online?
Well, by creating these strong visual concepts, they can translate them into accessible formats. The YouTube thumbnails, Instagram carousels, things like that. It allows 4 by Fusion to really embrace digital culture, reach people where they are, and create this holistic artistic universe that engages more than just your ears.
A whole universe. Okay. Now, let's shift gears slightly, because tied into all this is a very personal story that seems to really exemplify TATANKA's overall mission. Tell us about 𝗧𝗓𝗓.
Right, 𝗧𝗓𝗓𝗓. This is a really moving part of the narrative we review. She's described as a 27-year-old cellist with Quechua ancestry. Indigenous, trans, non-Christian, brown-skinned.
A lot of intersections of identity there.
Absolutely. And her journey took her from the Andes to Missoula, Montana. The narrative describes her cello almost like a part of her body, a second spine that held memories of trauma she hadn't even verbalized. Music as memory, as body.
That's intense. And this connects to another TATANKA initiative, Orchestra Americana.
Yes, Orchestra Americana isn't just presented as an ensemble. It's framed as a home, a kind of sanctuary of sound for artists who are in various ways in exile or marginalized.
A sanctuary. What does that look like in practice?
It means radical inclusion. The group described is incredibly diverse. 𝗧𝗓𝗓𝗓, a Palestinian oud player, a Dene poet who taught herself the viola, a Korean monk who plays the violin. It's this amazing mix.
Wow.
And there's this line in the source material that really stuck with me. No one here asked for pronouns. They asked only what chord felt like home.
That says so much about creating a space of deep acceptance, doesn't it? Beyond labels.
Exactly. It's about finding common ground in sound and shared experience.
And their process. It wasn't just about playing music together immediately.
No, apparently their first rehearsals weren't rehearsals in the typical sense. They just listened to each other for days.
Listen to what?
To each other's stories, to their memories, their experiences. The idea was that by sharing these things, they were tuning the symphony of the group before even playing notes, finding harmony in their shared humanity first.
That's a radically different way to form an ensemble.
It really is. And then there's this fascinating collaboration with AI.
AI. How does that fit in?
𝗧𝗓𝗓𝗓 was paired with an AI sound synthesist. Its name is 𝗧𝗓𝗓, and it's described not just as code or a program, but as a presence, an ambient intelligence.
Okay. What does this AI do?
It reads 𝗧𝗓𝗓𝗓's biometrics in real time. Her breathing patterns, tiny muscle tremors, even her heartbeat. And then 𝗧𝗓𝗓𝗓 mirrors these incredibly subtle, intimate signals in sound.
Whoa, so the AI is responding directly to her physical state.
Directly. The result described was this unique hybrid sound, 𝗧𝗓𝗓𝗓's acoustic cello, but layered with these synthesized wind textures that apparently mimicked Amazonian birdsong from her ancestral lands and subtly infused with these gentle, lo-fi techno pulses.
Cello, birdsong, techno, and AI responding to her body.
Yeah. The source calls it a sacred collaboration between the unheard and the future, connecting the deeply personal, the ancestral, and the technologically advanced.
And this culminated in a specific performance.
Yes, a really symbolic one. 𝗧𝗓𝗓𝗓 performed with 𝗧𝗓𝗓𝗓 beneath the aurora borealis in Montana, playing not just for an audience, but for the land itself.
Beneath the auroras.
And the sound they created together is described as being ancestral, hybrid, alive. Something beyond easy categorization. Really profound.
That image is incredibly powerful. And the title of the resulting album, The Fifth String. What's the meaning there?
For 𝗧𝗔𝗧𝗔𝗡, the cello traditionally has 4 strings. The 5th string, according to the narrative, represented finding the one that had always been missing herself.
Ah, so it's about self-discovery, finding her identity.
Exactly. Finding her voice, her wholeness through this process of acceptance, collaboration, and connecting with her heritage and this technological partner. It's a metaphor for finding that vital part of yourself that maybe wasn't allowed to resonate before.
Okay, so pulling all these threads together, 4x-Fusion, 𝗧𝗔𝗧𝗔𝗡 story, Orchestra Americana, it seems like TATANKA has this really clear, overarching philosophy. They call it music meets mission.
That's right. It sums it all up. For TATANKA, music isn't just entertainment. It's not just art in a vacuum. It is identity. It's liberation. It can be home.
So Orchestra Americana is more than an orchestra.
Much more. It's positioned as an act of resistance against exclusion, against marginalization. It's an act of radical inclusion and this sacred collaboration between the unheard and the future. It's trying to embody a different way of being together.
And this connects to Sitting Bull's wisdom.
Yes, they draw explicitly on the wisdom of the 𝗑ᗕᗕડાᗑ chief Sitting Bull, who believed the world wouldn't be healed through power, but through harmony. TATANKA's vision seems to echo that this idea that achieving real harmony means ensuring every voice, especially those often marginalized, isn't just welcomed, but is seen as absolutely vital to the whole.
It's an incredible scope from, the technical innovation of fusing techno with a string quartet, all the way to these deeply human stories of finding sanctuary and self through sound. We've covered a lot: the sheer musical ambition of 4x-Fusion, the cultural depth, the visual world, and then 𝗧𝗔𝗧𝗔𝗡's incredibly moving journey with Orchestra Americana. It really underscores how music can break down barriers and build connection in some pretty unexpected ways.
It really does. And maybe that leaves us, and you listening, with final thought. In a world that often feels so divided, so fragmented, how might actively seeking out, and maybe more importantly, amplifying those unheard voices, whether it's through music like this or art, or even just in our daily conversations, how might that become our most powerful tool for building, genuine harmony? Maybe it encourages you to think about how you listen, or what new frequencies, what different perspectives you might seek out in your own life.